Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and on this episode of King of the Hill, I want to talk about Sir Squeezes of the Teddy Bears. I often talk about a faction's identity, that the goal of a faction should be evident from their cards. To me, the Teddy Bears are a faction that lack that identity. From the earliest descriptions, what the description implied and what the faction actually did were two very different things. Teddy Bears have messing with other players' minions in their identity, yet none of their minions actually do that. They draw power from opposing minions, sure, but they also focus on being smaller than average, which brings us to Sir Squeezes. Sir Squeezes is another one of the rare king minions with a strictly on-play ability, one with very specific wording. Play up to 3 minions of power 3 or less, whose total power is 5 or less, as extra minions here. Conceptually, this could make for a great big drop, but to me, it's underwhelming unless you use it properly. There are restrictions on the quality and quantity of minions, as well as their placement. They must be on the same base. But the quality and quantity are of a particular note, no more than 3 minions, and no total power greater than 5. If you've ever played Alhambra, this may seem reminiscent of the rule for drawing currency cards, but while there was great granularity in Alhambra, the teddy bears themselves are not a natural fit for Sir Squeezes. Almost all minions of the bottom tier are power 2 in terms of printed power. While Sir Squeezes benefits from cards that exploit printed power, let's do some quick math. 3 times 2 is obviously 6, which means that you cannot play 3 minions of power 2, because that would be over the total threshold. So if you are playing 2 power 2s, you need a power 1 to use all 3 slots, or play a 3 and a 2. Fortunately, the teddy bears have minions in the 1 slot to utilize, except for the fact that they are completely unnecessary. Snuggly Bear's ability can be triggered by Sir Squeezes himself, independent of his ability, so why waste one of those slots? This is true for all Snuggly Bears. A single minion can trigger them all. But what about the rest of the teddy bears? Lovely Bear is a perfectly fine 3 who can increase in power. But Fun Bear is a terrible choice for Sir Squeezes because it is your best engine card. You want to play your Fun Bears early so that they could soak up power counters and gain power from your opponents. To use them as part of Sir Squeezes would be terribly inefficient unless you knew you were going to win the game. Like the Venus Mantrap, I see Sir Squeezes as having the opposite Zombie Lord problem. Too many minions on one base without being an engine. Sir Squeezes also reminds me a little bit of Blossom, in that it can be difficult to utilize its full potential. Several viewers commented that Blossom could simply be another Instagrow, but Sir Squeezes doesn't scale down well. If you play just 1 minion of power 3, the ship's captain is better since you could also search for that minion, rather than having it in your hand. Titania can also play a single minion who might be better than the 2 power 2 minions, plus Titania has the flexibility to return an opposing minion. Sir Squeezes doesn't get much help from his bases either. Out of the Woods will increase the power of all minions before scoring, but it lacks that boost that helps you break a base by yourself, and that is key with Sir Squeezes. You need to be efficient, and you are forced to play them all on the same base, so if the card forces you to spend heavily, you're going to want a maximum return. Thus, I'm making the statement that Sir Squeezes derives little to no value from his own faction and is completely dependent on his partner for utility. Any minion could still trigger all 4 Snuggly Bears. Even with a group hug, an action that often seems to follow Sir Squeezes, you are using a lot of teddy bear cards wastefully. So let's look at some good partner faction for Sir Squeezes. I've mentioned this before, but ignobles and teddy bears work really well together, particularly because of Fun Bear. Fun Bear is obviously a deterrent for other players, but when you can give control of it away, suddenly Sir Squeezes' big drop becomes a lot more efficient. Although Sir Squeezes forces minions to be played on the same base, the Sneaky Squire does not, and all of those Snuggly Bears would effectively be doubled in power. You'd get to play the Sneaky Squire minions on a different base, which helps getting a head start elsewhere, and then you can play Banner Call to get back all your minions, including your newly powered Fun Bear. With the new Ignoble Titan, this combo is even more potent. Like other minions with the Zombie Lord problem, movement factions are a natural fit for these types of bursts. I won't repeat them too much in this video because it's already been covered and will likely come up again, but the pirates work particularly well when you use Sir Squeezes to drop a lot of power in a base by yourself, using Swashbuckling to increase everyone's power, using Full Sail to move everybody but the 2 first mates off the base, and then move the first mate after the base scores. You may be able to net 2 bases this way. If you want to exploit the starting power aspect of Sir Squeezes, all 3 mimics could be played at the same time for a 0 to 20 burst. I actually think this might be too expensive because it would really limit your minions for remaining turns, but it would work and should net you a base by yourself. The giant ants, in my opinion, have a better combo because they can approximate the same threshold with weaker cards, albeit more of them. You have the flexibility of playing any of your non-Killer Queen ants, and this can be even more of a power counter factory. If you play 3 workers at a time, you can help set up your combos where you can consolidate all of your counters on 1 minion and then transfer them after a base scores. Sir Squeezes, therefore, becomes a clever way to inject up to 6 power counters with your regular minion play. In most cases, when you play 2 minions of power 2 or less, they have the same use case as Blossom because they have the same name. But what about factions that have uniquely named minions? This is an opportunity for Sir Squeezes to shine. The Astro Knights are in a fairly unique position where they have the power distribution of minions as well as movement. Ghost Knight is the perfect type of minion for Sir Squeezes because he fills that hard to fill 3rd spot and gives a power boost that makes the big drop more efficient. You can grab any 2 of the other power 2 Astro Knights, have a lot of minions on 1 base for group hug, and then use Scoundrel to move Sir Squeezes and himself over to another base. The Magical Girls can accomplish the same goal with the added benefit of minion recycling. Because of the way that the card resolution order works, you can play the white Magic Hat, grab Power Maid, and play her as one of the 3 minions. Combining this with the black Magic Hat gets you your 3rd minion and sets up Lunar Captain to be your recycling engine, retrieving the 2 Magic Hats and eventually Sir Squeezes himself, hopefully. The 2 Rainbow Girls also fit in well with the Sir Squeezes burst, especially if they follow all of your Snuggly Bears. I don't normally like to mention robots as synergies, but Sir Squeezes stands out because to me, he is evidence that the bases should have the option to be drafted. Sir Squeezes plays directly into both robot bases as well as Rhodes Plaza Mall. If you're playing robots, you'll obviously have these bases in your deck, but too many bases would dilute your chances of seeing them. It's possible to drop at least 50 power using only cards in your hand, as well as at least 10 minions. You're only a well-placed tech center away from some even more absurd power drops, but I'm not trying to rely on any card draw. Being able to gain 10 or more points from a single base, even at the cost of your hand, is worth considering, and it escalates the tension of your opponents, for they know that they have to break those bases quickly if you're playing teddy bears. As I mentioned before, you don't have to use Sir Squeezes for his full effect, but I feel like you should intend to. Otherwise, you're just handicapping the teddy bears, and I'd personally rather have an engine-style king minion, especially if you're limiting Sir Squeezes. There are occasions to play a 3-2 split, but I think it's more interesting to think of this minion in its most efficient form. But nothing stops you from using Sir Squeezes as a simple 10 power drop. How do you use Sir Squeezes? Let me know in the comments. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.